Welcome to the Daughter Arise channel. My name is Yvonne Ellis, and this channel is all about discussing topics and issues surrounding childhood sexual abuse. I myself am somebody who would be classed as a survivor. I went through sexual abuse for 5 years from the age of 9 to 13 years old. And on this channel, I share parts of my experience with you as honestly as I can. I talk about news stories surrounding sexual abuse and provide commentary around it. Really, this channel is meant to be a platform where survivors of childhood sexual abuse, supporters, those who want to find out more can come and hear firsthand and the experience of it from somebody who has been through it, my perspective, my insight into how it affects lives, how it affected my life, and what we can do as a society to help to support survivors of sexual abuse. I think that in the media and with different platforms, not enough is being done to not only raise awareness and educate people, but also provide kind of support and solutions to those who have experienced it. So this is how I want to use my platform, and this is exactly what I do. If you are new to this channel, never come on this channel before, welcome. Please be sure to check out my other videos. If you've come on this channel before, please be sure as well to share these videos and subscribe and like the videos that I share. It's not really an easy subject to talk about, but it is time that we address the elephant in the room by having open and honest discussions about it. So today I want to come and talk to you about post-traumatic stress disorder, depression and medication. So PTSD, depression and meds, how it affected my life, my experience of having post-traumatic stress disorder and depression and being on medication. Now, I know for a lot of you who have been through the trauma of being sexually abused as a child, part of your journey may have been consisted of having depression, anxiety, maybe being on medication, and maybe you are still struggling with those things. So I want to kind of share my story with you and my experience, and maybe give you some insight for yourself into it. Maybe you haven't discussed it or thought about it in this way. So when I was 10 years old, I first recognized, looking back, that I actually had depression. I remember it was a year into my abuse. As I've shared, I was sexually abused by my dad for 5 years from the age of 9 to 13 years old, and it had a detrimental effect on my life. And a year into the abuse at 10 years old, I remember being outside. It was a hot day. I was sitting on the floor, and this dark feeling, that's what I describe it as, just suddenly came over me. It was a feeling of blackness. It was only years later that I was able to recognize and pinpoint that as depression. And when I was taken into care at 13 years old, I was diagnosed not only with depression, but post-traumatic stress disorder. Symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder is brought about by traumatic life experiences that can cause incredible stress and health problems to the person who experienced it. So for me, my post-traumatic stress disorder, I had nightmares, panic attacks, reliving of the abuse over and over again inside my head, shakes, constant state of alert, negative thoughts, sleep problems. I had this for many years, and it did have a real bad effect on my life, to the point where, when I was 22 years old, these experiences with the depression ended up with me having a psychiatric breakdown, and that was really hard. The depression had a real bad effect on my life. Well, the thing is, when I was between the age of 13 to 17 years old, I recognized this feeling as the black cloud. Some days it would affect me, other days it didn't so much, but I would still have the nightmares and anxiety and a constant state of alert that was going on as well. And in all fairness, when I was in the therapeutic kids homes that I was in, they did try and engage me in therapeutic groups and to see like psychotherapists. But at that time, being so young, and not wanting to talk about what happened to me as a child, I didn't really engage in those services. But the depression I really noticed when I left care at 17 years old. By this point, I had my own flat. I was a young single parent, and I realized, because I, didn't have much family around at that time and spent a lot of time kind of by myself, I started to realize and feel the effects of depression, and see the effects of depression in my life. I would cry a lot. I would have negative thoughts. I found it very hard to get out of bed in the morning, and even when I did manage to get out of bed, I would go back to bed after I dropped my daughter to nursery. I found it hard to, I had prolonged kind of absences from my jobs at the time, where, I had jobs where I was a sales assistant working in retail. I would have periods where I just couldn't go into work. I found it hard to be motivated. Even on some days, I felt like I just could not get up. I couldn't even focus on doing even the smallest of tasks, like maybe getting up and getting myself together. Everything just felt really like in slow motion. And one of the things I kind of describe my depression as, it's almost like having a clamp on your brain that is constricting your thought process, your ability to do simple tasks. It was just like this clamp, and when that clamp, as I describe it, was on my brain, constricting me like that, I just could not function. I suffered from depression for about 25 years. So from the age of 10 right up until 35. Actually, that's more, about 25 years. And consistently having depression. And it really affected everything about myself. It made me feel very low about myself. I had no confidence. I couldn't move on past what had happened to me. It really had a bad effect on my life. And when I had the nervous breakdown at 22 years old, it was really a combination of things. Years of holding in what had happened to me as a child, it just pent up inside me, and then one day I just completely broke down, and I was taken into hospital, and in hospital I was given was introduced to medication at 22 years old. And my experience of being on medication, for me personally, I found it extremely difficult. It was not beneficial to me. I was on 3 different types of medication: Zopiclone, fluoxetine and olanzapine, and that was for a range of different things to do with helping me to, one was to help me to sleep, one was to help me to function through depression, and I can't remember what the other one was about, but I used to have to take these sets of pills at certain points in the day, from when I was in hospital, and after I left hospital I was on medication for 2.5 years. Medication for me, out of everything that I had been through, everything that I had tried to alleviate the problems to do with depression, for me personally, it did not work for me. I didn't find it helpful to be in a zombie-like state. I had tremors, I had shakes, my body would jerk at different times, and I would sweat profusely. I found it hard. Everything just felt like it was in 3D, in slow motion. It didn't really help me to deal with my problem, help me to deal with the depression or anything. It just kind of kept me in this state of like a zombie. And I'm only talking about my experience. For me, depression meds did not work for me. For you, they might work, they might help with your mood, they might help you to be able to function in the day. Everybody is different, and with depression meds, it is important that you discuss the options with your doctor. I was on quite a high dose for a while, and then they brought it down, and I just found that medication didn't help me. What helped me was a series of different things. With the post-traumatic stress disorder and the depression, starting to talk about my experiences, the root causes of what was causing my depression, that really did help. Psychotherapy for me was absolutely essential to helping me to start to address the issues of my past. My faith really helped me, having a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. That helped me as well, because there was some serious, what I found in my experience is not just emotional and psychological damage that sexual abuse brought about in my life that left an imprint. I was spiritually damaged, how I felt about myself, the kind of attack upon myself because of, you know, the relationship that I was supposed to have with my dad really had an effect on me. I was wounded spiritually, in my mind, emotionally, everything, and it really had a compounding effect. And my relationship with God through Jesus helped to start to unloose me from some of those, unloose me from the kind of damage that sexual abuse has brought in my life. And that, coupled together with therapy, being able to start to outlet things, my depression started to slowly get better. So from the age of 22 to 35, from when I first started talking about my experiences, to 35, that's kind of how long it started to take to kind of lessen the episodes of depression. It wasn't an easy process to go through. But what I found with my depression, things like holding on to my anger, depression, and, you know, unforgiveness, and not feeling any hope, these things really did help to kind of make my depression, to kind of make the depression even worse. But talking to somebody really did help. Depression for me, and a lot of people think that depression is, oh, just cheer up, you get out of it. I mean, now in this day and age, we're in 2018, there is a lot more awareness about mental health issues, how depression and other mental health issues affect somebody's life. I had serious problems with anxiety as well, and low moods. And, you know, over the time, you know, having that kind of information helped me to understand about it. And a lot of people now are more aware that depression is not just cheer up and get out of it. You know, it is more than that. It is a mental illness, and it is something that is treatable for each person. For you, it might have been medication and talking about it or doing something. Everybody has a different way in which they deal with their depression. So, you know, it is important that you get that help. Depression is really, really serious. There were times when I had, in the midst of my deepest depression, that I felt suicidal. I just wanted to end my life. Everything looked bleak. But I'm here today to share this with you in hopes that if you are somebody who is at this point, you know, you can get support and the help you need to be able to address it. Even talking to somebody, you could talk to Samaritans if you're over in this country. In your own country, maybe there is a helpline that you can call if you're feeling suicidal. And those helplines are usually like 24-hour helplines where you can call at any time. I would definitely recommend, if you recognize the symptoms of depression, you know, can't be bothered to do anything, don't see the hope in the point of anything, crying, unable to eat. That's something as well. You know, I found it very difficult to eat. I just felt very sorrowful, very down in myself. You know, going to the doctor and getting a proper diagnosis is definitely something that is going to help you to deal with your depression. Don't try and deal with it yourself. Don't try and understand it yourself. There are mental health services that can actually help you. One of the key things that I kind of take away from the time where I had depression, that 25-year period of having depression, is that one of the things that was majorly helpful to me was understanding what was causing my depression. Now, this is not something that I did by myself. As I said, you know, I was in psychotherapy for many years on and off. And there has been times where, as I've mentioned on other videos, where I go back and I get that help to be able to understand certain things that have happened in my life. And one of the things that had really stuck out for me is that the experiences that I had as a child, which left me feeling broken, wounded in my spirit, in my soul, left me feeling guilty, ashamed, felt like I was to blame. And especially when I didn't have any family support, I was ostracized from my family. Yeah, sure, my mum would sometimes visit, when I had my own flat at 17, but emotionally did not offer the support that I needed, literally. And I could not express that because it was almost shut down immediately. All these experiences, plus feeling anger, unforgiveness, feeling guilt, feeling I was to blame for my life circumstances, all stemmed into that depression. And as I spent time talking about it, that's what helped to kind of release that valve within me. And that is what I take away from that experience. Depression is not something that you should beat yourself up about if you are somebody who has gone through it. It's not something to beat yourself up. You may be even going through it now. For me, it was one of those things where it was a cycle for years and years and years. And I had to try and, I tried different things. As I said, the medication, the psychotherapy, my faith, these different things all formed part of my journey. And for you, your journey will consist of different things that will help you with your depression. People who are chronically depressed, it will take a long time for them to be able to get out of it, if they ever do. But I wanted to share my experience with you to kind of offer hope. For me, my hope comes from Christ. That I think one of the main things about depression is feeling like actually there is no hope, but there is hope. And even if that means that you're looking at me, you may be depressed, you may be at home crying, feeling that life will never get better for you. You may not believe in God, but I know that, in looking at me and me sharing my experience, I hope that you can feel some type of hope. Because if you've read my story, Daughter Arise, my autobiography, I went through absolute hell because of going through sexual abuse and all the aftermath that came with it. But I'm still here today, and I'm here sharing my story with you, hoping that you can get something out of it. Post-traumatic stress disorder lessened with time, and that again, I feel like the nightmares, and the constant state of alert and the negativity through different things, the therapies, through prayer, through sharing having a relationship with God, this all helped me to kind of alleviate and get rid of those kind of symptoms. Depression waned out over time. It didn't just magically just disappear. It was like a 10-year process, 12-year process to be able to get to that point of it just being able to say, I no longer have depression. I do have periods where I have low moods. I'm not going to lie. I have periods where I have low moods, and I think one of the things that I feel I should share with you is that I haven't done a video for a couple of months, and besides being busy setting up my business and getting contracts, and that is going relatively well, I have gone through periods of having low mood still, and it's something that I've learned now to accept. And I take it as this is part of who I am. I'm never going to be perfect. I have this scar of being sexually abused, and sometimes, there is still little things that affect me, but not directly to do with the sexual abuse, just within my own DNA, within my own personal identity. There are times where there's things that affect me that bring about a low mood, and I can live with that. It's something that I share with people who I support, that if you have a down day, that is absolutely fine. Don't beat yourself up about it. It's important to be kind to yourself. So I would just say to you, if you're somebody who has depression, or recognizes symptoms of depression, you need to go and see a doctor so you can get the right help and support, or talk to a family member or a friend or somebody who you trust who can support you through that process. I'm just sharing my experience with you of the things that helped me, and what worked for me and what didn't work for me. I'm in no way saying if you're on medication you should jump off medication, because if you're on medication, that means that that's been prescribed by a doctor, and that is a discussion for you and your doctor to have about whether you should come off of it or lower the dose, or you know, up the dose if it's working for you. That's a discussion with you and your doctor. So I just wanted to do this quick video just to share that with you. If you are interested in finding out more about what Daughter Arise is about, check out the website www.daughterarise.org.uk. I have a fantastic blog on there, which I will leave the link in the description box below, where every month I try and share with you a blog piece called on my website called, the blog is called Hope in the Future, where I write articles around issues and topics again to do with sexual abuse and the journey to recovery. One of the things I try and do with my organisation and the things that I do is to offer hope. I know what it's like to live in despair, to live with being burdened by sexual abuse. So what I try and do is to offer you hope, whether that is through sharing my experiences, offering encouragement. So please check out the website. I'll also leave the link to my autobiography, Daughter Arise. If you haven't bought my book, you know, and you want some kind of empowerment to feel that, you know, even with what you've gone through, that it will get better, I would recommend my book Daughter Arise. Not just because I wrote it, but because I'm real and I'm honest about my experience. You know, that book I wrote, and it was published back in October 2010. So we're looking at 8 years now since that book has been published, and it still continues to touch lives. So that is it for this video. Be encouraged. If you're going through depression, know that it will get better. Look at me, look at where I am today. You know, I've been in the darkest of places and I'm still here. Not perfect, but still here, living the life that I choose to live. You know, and I just want to encourage you in that, because I know it's not easy. I know what it's like to have depression and feel broken and feel, you know, you'll never get through it, and be crying all the time and just be depressed under your covers. I understand it. That was part of my life for 25 years. And, you know, I understand that. And just be kind to yourself. And I will see you in the next video. Be sure to subscribe and like these videos. Take care.